Hello and welcome to Pixel Perspective Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Adrian Townsend, and here's your other host,
JJ. What's up?
There it is. That's a delayed hello or an introduction.
I wasn't sure if you were going to say my name or not. You just said, here's your other host. And I was like, I'll say it. Okay.
we rehearsed so well. I just rolled over the dog's tail.
Yeah, no, that was all scripted. Even
Sorry.
Adrian running over the dog with his chair was scripted. It was all scripted. 100%.
That's how this podcast goes. We don't take notes here. We don't take notes at all.
Fair enough.
So this episode is all about JRPGs, and it is a genre that is near and dear to both of our hearts, as you all pretty well probably already know. But before we get into that, JJ, what you been playing?
Oh, man. Gosh, I have been. You know what? Actually, I should have brought this up sooner. As he said, we are planners here. So I recently finished several games off my list. It is only July, and I only have 5 games left on my list of 20 to beat, which is pretty sweet. So Star Tropics on the NES, I finished in one day. It was very, very short.
How long is that game?
I'd say it probably took me with a guide, 4 or 5 hours.
Really?
And that was with dying a lot because there is a lot of tough stuff in that game. It's Nintendo, so it's tough. But it was actually really, really fun. I enjoyed it. I'd never beaten it before, but I used to own it as a kid. I would love to get a complete copy of that game at some point, especially with the piece of paper inside that you can dip in water. Also have been playing. I recently also finished.
Don't mean to rub it in. I got this at Retropalooza last year, actually. I think. No. Yes, I did.
I got these in Retropalooza last year. That's how you sound. That's you. That's how
Dude,
you sound.
This is
Does it have
also
the
one of
paper
my
in it?
favorite games. Yeah, it does. It's one of my favorite games. The only thing it doesn't have is the cardboard box
I see.
that holds everything together.
That's
But
pretty awesome.
I got the map right here.
Very cool. That's a great game.
I love that game. And when I saw it there with the box as good a condition it was in, I had to get it. It was only like $30.
Heck yeah. That's awesome. I also finished for the first time ever Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. I played that on Xbox. Really enjoyed it, but man, it is rough to get through nowadays. The environments are so bland, and the game is so great that I would love to see some sort of a remake. I think it could be really, really cool because the story was awesome, and I loved getting to know the characters and playing through it. But man, the environments are just rough on the eyes. You can tell it's an older game. But I really enjoyed it. Also finished up, Albert Odyssey on Sega Saturn. I
am so jealous of these games that you've finished. These are all games I want to finish. That's really good.
Albert Odyssey was really, really fun. It is not worth the asking price that it's going for on eBay. No way at all.
What's it up to now?
I think the cheapest I saw the other day for a complete copy was $350.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I mean it's insane. It's ludicrous. Yeah, and that's a complete copy. I think disc only is between $180 and $225. It's just absolutely insane. And there are even with it, and my copy's pristine. It is a beautiful copy. I got it a few years ago. I hadn't even hooked up my Saturn until now. I'm so glad I jumped on it when I did. But I had a few crashes and skips, and it was really, really annoying. But the game itself was classic JRPG. A lot of fun, very convoluted with the storyline, but I enjoyed it. And so I will probably not play my Sega Saturn again for a while.
Yeah, that's a game I was looking to get a couple years ago, and it was still $200 then.
It's insane.
So I didn't. But it's
so expensive.
What was the disc scratched, or is your Saturn that was skipping?
No, it's just the game itself. I looked at it online, and people have had issues with it. It's unfortunately, just comes with the territory.
Yeah.
So really long
That's
load
cool
times
though.
too,
I
in a lot
mean,
of cases.
I've played a little bit of that. So my Saturn, I burn discs and play the disc on that way because it's easy to bypass. But I started playing that game, and it struck me as something I really want to get to and play more. I just haven't yet.
I mean, it was originally going to be for Super Nintendo, so it has those sprite graphics and everything, and the artwork is beautiful in that game, especially the box art and everything. I absolutely adore it. That's what caught my eye.
Yeah, mine too.
It's just so beautiful to look at.
And voice acting, it's not bad either.
There is voice acting. It's not much though. Most of it is just text. It's kind of just a few of the cutscenes that have voice acting, but what is there? Yeah, it's pretty good. So
yeah,
I like it. Other than that,
Very cool.
I just started Persona 4. Just started yesterday.
Oh man, that is such a great game. I'm excited to see what you think of it. And you're playing Golden, right?
Golden.
I think I asked you this before on Vita. Nice. Yeah, I think I put more hours into that game than any other RPG. It's a long game to begin with.
It's the shortest Persona out of the last 3 that came out, 3, 4, and 5. It's the shortest one apparently.
Really? I must have put 80 hours into that game though. I played it at a very leisurely pace, let's just say.
What about you?
Go back and replay any or get any trophies or anything. Well, it's been pretty light for gaming for me lately. Just with work and getting things done around the house. It's been pretty busy for me. So but I did finally finish what is that? Star Wars game. I can't remember the sub name. You know what I'm talking about, right?
New one.
Yeah, the new one.
I don't remember the name of it. I still haven't played it, so.
Fallen Order. I don't know why I can never remember the subline for that game ever. It's really, really good, but it's not one that I would go back and play. And I know I've talked about it on previous episodes, but after having finished it, I thoroughly enjoyed the storyline and I thoroughly enjoyed the gameplay and everything. But the glitches really kill it for me. There was a lot of things that just are off. That game needed more testing. So I've also been playing. I've been playing Xenoblade Chronicles still on my Switch, and I've been playing quite a few just random 3DS games, but mostly I'm in a puzzle game mood right now. I need just something quick that I can play for 20 minutes, 30 minutes. So my go-to right now is P-Cross 3D on the 3DS.
Interesting.
And, are you into P-Cross at all?
I've never played it.
Oh man, those games are incredibly addictive to me.
What is that? Is that like where you move the thing down below and the ball bounces on it and you try to ricochet it back? No, I'm way off.
No,
okay.
It's
all right.
It is. So it's like the closest thing I could think of is like Sudoku. It's similar to Sudoku in that you've got numbers and you've got squares. And so you've got a grid of rows and columns of squares, and each row and column has a set of numbers on top or on the left side. And those numbers tell you how many blocks are in that row or column. And it's just a puzzle game and trying to decipher which blocks you can break and which blocks you can color to
almost like Minesweeper in a way.
Yeah, it's similar to that, but the finished product is usually some sort of pixel art, something or other.
Oh, cool.
But it's P-Cross 3D is the same concept, but you have different planes, and those planes stick together. And whenever you finish it, you get like a 3D model of a character or something like that. It's just
cool.
Give it a chance. It's one of those games that actually the first time I played it was on the 3DS, the Legend of Zelda P-Cross game. I think it was a free gift whenever the Nintendo Rewards program went away. Or maybe it was it's something you could buy with your rewards points at the time. So I bought it and started playing it. And I played that thing every single night until I beat it. And it was just incredibly addictive. And since then, I've just been trying other P-Cross games, and they're all equally addictive. Highly recommended.
Cool.
So, excuse me. Yeah. Other than that, that's really it. I went back to try to play Final Fantasy VI. I did recently go to my game shop. I call it my honey hole because they've got so many games there that
Has a very different meaning where I'm from.
my honey pot. I don't know.
Oh boy.
The honey hole. It's got so many games that I want like for my collection. He's got just tons of Game Boy Advance and Game Boy, PlayStation, you know, just a whole bunch of different RPGs that are complete in box, pristine collection, or pristine condition, and it's always something I want to add to my collection. So I went there recently, and I don't know if you can see it up there, right there. That's Final Fantasy VI on the GBA. I got that complete in box, just
Nice.
awesome condition. So I picked that up. So
That's the best version,
I started
too.
playing that. Yeah, that's what I hear. I started playing it emulated, and I thought, yep, this is a game I need to get. So I'm so happy I found that. But I also picked up, I got Dragon Quest 1 and 2 on the GBC, Game Boy Color.
Mhm.
And that's also complete in box. And
Cool.
I got...
I think I have that as well.
I got some... I bought some Dragon Quest, all the Dragon Quest games on the DS. They were amazing condition, and they all came with the strategy guide. So
Wow.
I already own those games, but I really wanted the strategy guides with them, so I bought them and then sold my my copies on eBay that I already had. So it's just basically a condition upgrade plus strategy guide.
Yeah. Cool.
And then I also picked up Nostalgia on the DS. So I've decided lately that I'm going for handheld games. I'm going for 3DS and DS, GBA, Game Boy. I'm going for those right now, especially the RPGs. That's kind of my focus right now. So I picked that up, and I picked up Mega Man Star Force 3. I don't know. It's kind of like the successor to the Mega Man Battle Network series,
Cool.
and it's on the DS. Apparently, the one that I got is one of the more rare Mega Man Star Force games. So I was excited to find that there, and I picked it up. There's some others in there that I'm just not remembering right now. I think, Amy went with me, and we picked up Donkey Konga with Donkey Konga 1 and 2 and the bongos. We used to play that a lot back when we were dating. We had the GameCube, and that was one of the games that we play all the time, and I've
Never
since gotten rid of it. It's just a fun little quirky rhythm game, and I love rhythm games. So
cool.
That was exciting. But I didn't mean to go into what I picked up, talking about what I've been playing. But I'm excited to get that stuff.
Yeah,
he's still got a lot more stuff there that I want, but he wants
to be able to eat
prices. Exactly. So
yeah.
And he's been giving me deals though. Since I've been buying in bulk, he's always been cutting me some sort of deal. And
cool.
Yeah, I'm going to continue to go there until I buy him out of everything that he has that I want. It's just the reason I call it my honey hole is
because stop saying. Oh God, it's so weird.
What would you prefer me to say?
I prefer you not to say honey hole. Just call it your local game store. That's all you have to say. My local game store.
I never thought anything bad about that word until you made a comment on it, and I'm like, oh man, is it really mean something somewhere else? Huh.
Oh boy.
Anyway, he always has an amazing selection, but he's not a video game store. He's a comic. He markets himself as a comic book store, and he does have a ton of comic books, but he also has a ton of like action figures, complete in box from like the 80s on up. I bought a Lino. I've been wanting a Lino, an old school Lino forever, and he had one there. Didn't have the sword, but that's okay. I just wanted the Lino. But he just has so much stuff. And he's tucked away in an old shopping center and doesn't really advertise at all. So nobody really knows about it, or seems to be. Because some of the games in there that I've purchased recently have been there for a long time. And I've just been waiting to buy it.
Cool.
So, yeah, it's it's a cool place. If you ever come down here, I'm going to take you there for sure. You'll get a kick out of it.
If I come down there, please don't say, "Let me show you my honey hole." Please don't.
I knew
say
you were
that.
going there.
Because if that's the case, if you say that, I can assure you, I will turn right back around and go home. 100%, maybe even farther.
All right. I'll try to refrain myself.
Oh boy.
Anyway, that's what I've been doing. You ready to get in this JRPG stuff?
I'm ready to get into this JRPG stuff.
All right. So, JJ, I thought we'd start off this conversation. We do have a top 5 list that we were going to finish this up with, but I wanted to get into some discussion about JRPGs and why they're so special to us. So before we get into that, though, JJ, what defines a JRPG to you?
It is it's an RPG that is made in Japan. That's literally the literal definition, Japanese role-playing game. But to me, it's always been a little more fantastical, a little bit more anime-like. Whereas, like, you see Western movies compared to anime, like Japanese animation, you're going to get a lot more seriousness, a little less like over-the-topness when it comes to the Western stuff. But then anime, Japanese animation can go above and beyond like anything, and there's really no boundaries and stuff like that. When I did the old podcast, The Frozen North, Brian and Mark, I can't remember which one of them came up with it, but they made a really good analogy with it, or description of it. They said that JRPGs tend to have the highest highs and the lowest lows because they tend to be like, wow, this kind of stuff is just blowing my mind. But then also 20 minutes later, it can make you go like, oh my God, are you kidding me with this? Really? Like that just happened? So it's so hit and miss. And frankly, that's what I love about it. It's always driven my imagination, which is quite frankly how I've always looked at anime as well. And I that's what I love in my video games, is something that's going to push my imagination and make me, feel like I'm on this grand adventure that is not possible in the real world. And JRPGs tend to do that a lot more, and tend to also be a focus on like a team of characters that are working together, and as corny as it is, using the power of love and friendship to overcome any obstacle that stands in their way. I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
Oh, that's really good, man. That's basically you've hit on everything that I've thought about as well. But yeah, so there's different kinds of JRPGs, I would say. Like, I don't know if there's a clear definition for what classifies as a JRPG, but I always think of them, and the reason I love them so much is because of that anime art style. I love the bright colors and the environments. I mean, that's the first thing you see. Like when you're looking at the box for the game, I mean, it's like eye candy for me, and I just sit there and just stare at it, and all I want to do is play it. The game could be absolute crap, but if the artwork looks good, I might convince myself that I like it. I mean, I'm just that much of a sucker for it. But the turn-based combat is something that I think is a key characteristic of a JRPG. Town dungeon exploration, so being able to go talk to people and figure out what you're supposed to do next through dialogue is something that's characteristic. Also, a lot of dialogue, so you can soak in the story and learn about the characters and really get a feel for the differences between each character and what makes them unique and how their dynamic with each other grows over time throughout your adventure. That's another thing. It's like our JRPGs are usually always grand adventures with taking weak characters and with real no place in the world and making them save the world in some grand way, while also meeting people and becoming friends with a party along the way. But also, I think one of the biggest characteristics besides the artwork is the music. I always associate really pleasant, just really great orchestrated music coming from JRPGs. It's just
they tend to focus a lot more on emotion.
Exactly.
Whereas I think, and this obviously is not like every single JRPG and every single Western RPG, but at least in my experience, Western RPGs tend to be more atmospheric and like make the music as part of the background in order to kind of set the mood, whereas JRPGs tend to, especially you look at like the Final Fantasy series, Nobuo Uematsu is crazy with this kind of thing. Same with Yasunori Mitsuda. Very much a lot of personality that adds to the game's personality and gives you those emotions that the characters are feeling within that music that's playing right alongside it.
Oh yeah, definitely. It heightens the feeling that you're supposed to be receiving from the characters. And because I mean, it's all well, old school RPGs anyway, and some more modern ones are all dialogue based. And so it's like reading an interactive book almost to me, with some characteristics of having some decent fun gameplay if the battle system is done correctly. Because really the only gameplay, unless they include some puzzles here and there, is walking and fighting, talking, and that's it. I mean, there's not really much to it. But if you can keep me entertained with an intriguing storyline that's on is constantly evolving, and also give me characters that I care about. If you make me care about them within the first few hours of the game, that's usually all I need to keep me going. I'm very, very into how character development is done in video or in JRPGs in general. And I think they're done better than Western RPGs. Western RPGs want you to be the main character. They want you to build your own experience. And I appreciate that, and I love that style. But JRPGs are more focused on the storyline. You are just playing as a character who's participating in this adventure. You really don't have any control over customizing this character other than in their skill points and stats for battle. You're not growing a unique character for yourself. So that's something that's always been appealing to me. And I think that's one of the things that draws me in, as well as artwork. I talked about it earlier before, but seriously, some of the games I would have never given a chance, I did because of the artwork. And it's usually the first thing I see sitting on the shelf is if the artwork looks appealing to me and it's got some colorful epic with lots of characters on the cover, or maybe just one or two characters, showing me that there's characters involved in this game that I'm going to get to learn about, I'm most likely going to pick it up. And that's something I'm going to want to play. And but you did say
the complete box of Secret of Mana. That box art is so beautiful. Just
it's one of the most iconic
forests. Sure. Like, shout out to my friend Lamont, who sent me those art books a while ago. I did a video on it on my channel, but that Secret of Mana art book, man, oh my god, that thing is just so beautiful. And like, God, seriously,
it's still one I need to pick up.
Gorgeous.
Secret of Mana has some of the best looking artwork.
It really does.
Of any game. But I mean, all the attention to detail when you're looking at the leaves and the trees and stuff, there's just marks everywhere and colors everywhere. It's just a collage of color explosion. But I mean, even with like just ones that have a bunch of just characters on it or something, those are the ones that they're usually bright and colorful and very anime-esque. And that's, I don't know why, it just draws me in. What are, you mentioned some things that drew you into JRPGs, such as the artwork and stuff like that, but are there any other things, any other characteristics that you really admire?
I mean, you kind of hit most of the big ones. The art, especially. I have, like you said, I've done the same thing. I've actually got. I did one pickup video that is out now. When this is out, both of them will be out when this episode comes out. But my pickups 12 and 13 both have games where I basically just got them because they were cheap and because of the artwork. And I was like, this looks kind of neat. I don't know anything about this game, but hey, I'm going to pick it up because this looks intriguing and I love the artwork here. Not even necessarily JRPGs, just really, really beautiful artwork. That's one thing I miss from classic games in general is box art like that. And I do a comparison in one of those videos holding up the Last of Us 2 box art versus, one of the other games that is like totally just Japanese anime style. And it's like, I think it's Langrisser on the Switch. And it's a gorgeous, gorgeous box, man. It's so beautiful.
Yep.
And then you see The Last of Us 2. Hey, great game. I loved it. But that box art is literally just, Ellie's face, like looking like she's about to die. and that's
Yeah.
it, and like super dark and depressing, and I'm just like, this does not get me excited for this game. Like, knowing what it is and reading about it gets me excited, but looking at this box art, if I knew nothing about this game, I would just kind of be like, oh, what? No. But if
Yeah.
I saw Langrisser, knowing nothing about it, I would absolutely pick that up because of the box art, because it looks so gorgeous. And that's something that older games, like especially Super Nintendo, NES even, they just had so much personality. And I think that's a big reason I'm drawn to JRPGs, is because they still tend to do that to this day with the games that come out. The newer ones still have beautiful box art, even like on the back when you're looking at like the screenshots and everything like that. You see all of these just animation cells and just beautiful hand-drawn characters that are just, it's just awesome. It really is. There's so much personality in just the art alone. How can you not be attracted to that kind of thing, is, the way I look at it. And then the music, obviously. Music is always massive for me in games in general. And JRPGs tend to have the music just hit me right there every single time.
Yeah.
There are very few JRPGs where I didn't absolutely adore the music. It's hard for me to find one that I just didn't like it at all. I would say for the most part, the ones that are bad, I still look at and I'm like, yeah, that was okay. It's all right.
Yeah.
But I none of them I would say are horrible. They all just have so much emotion and weight to them. And that's what I look for. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, those are great points. I did think it was funny that you brought up the box art comparison between The Last of Us and Langrisser. So The Last of Us, I mean, I guess they're kind of setting you up. I haven't played it, but I know that's a sad, depressing game, and they're kind of setting you up for what to expect, I guess.
Yeah.
But Langrisser, funny you should mention that. Like, I played the demo of it on Switch, and the demo didn't do it for me. Like, I didn't really like it at all.
Yeah.
But I still want to buy that game because I can't stop looking at the freaking box art, man.
It's
I'm
beautiful.
just staring at it.
Absolutely.
I want that box art, and I found out that box art is also reversible. So the other side has another piece of just amazing looking art. Yeah,
nice.
I'm telling you, I went into a kind of a rabbit hole of, do I really want to spend? It was on sale at GameStop for like $36. Do I really want to spend $36 on a game that I'm not going to enjoy playing just because of the box art? It's just it's a dilemma that I always face with these things.
The sad thing is with that, I can pretty much guarantee you the price is only going to go up too. Does not seem like a game that they made a lot of copies for. So
right. You're just going to convince me to go buy it, aren't you?
Just saying. That's what runs through my head. JRPGs, especially older ones, they tend to have not made a lot of copies until Final Fantasy VII came out and there was the big JRPG boom.
Yeah.
JRPGs in general were not like highly sought after or anything because a lot of people hadn't played them. They had no idea what they even were. Then FF7 came out and it was a lot easier to find this stuff, and that's why you see a lot of like PS1 RPGs still not being super expensive. Some of the more obscure ones are, but like Final Fantasy VII, you can find that really easily for pretty cheap. Same with 8 and 9 and everything like that. So it's always a tough call anytime I see a game, especially if I haven't played it, don't know anything about it. A lot of times I have to go off the box art. If I think this looks cool, chances are it may be like twice as expensive next time I see it. You mentioned the Dragon Quest games on the DS. Those are hard to find now. They're not cheap. Like if you want to get them all, you're not gonna get like a fantastic deal at $10 a game on those things. That's just not gonna happen. So you have to get in early on a lot of these stuff, especially if you're a collector.
And I mean, the Dragon Quest games specifically, I sold one for $100 and one for $80. So $180 for 2 games is crazy.
And those were loose?
No, they were in the case. One didn't have a manual, the other one was complete in pretty good condition. Okay. But I mean, you're right. Like especially with Langrisser, man, I know they didn't make that many games, and being that I'm going after RPGs on handhelds, like that's another thing that makes me want to go pick up that game.
And it comes with Langrisser 1 and 2.
Yeah. And if I if I give it another chance, I might like it. I don't know. Maybe my train of thought. You have to be in a certain mood sometimes for some of these games. Yeah. If you need fast-paced action, they're not this. And I think I was, when I played the demo, I was wanting something a little bit more fast-paced at the time. But I think the thing that really turned me off as far as the demo goes is the art style. Like the art style in the game is not very well reminiscent of what's on the cover. It looked very mobile phone-ish. You know what I mean?
Ooh.
Like
Yeah, I do.
chibi
Yeah.
looking characters that
Yep.
have stiff paper doll leg movements and stuff. It's just, I
Yep.
didn't like it.
Hmm.
But I still might pick it up, like you said, just for the box art. It's crazy.
Albert Odyssey.
Albert Odyssey is one that,
Super
that's a good
expensive
point.
now, but it was not. You know, I mean, it was still expensive a few years ago when I bought it, but it's way more than I paid for it now.
You know what sucks, dude? When I first got into collecting, Albert Odyssey was like a $75 game. And I think, oh man, I'll never pay that much for a video game.
You look
Early
at that
days of
now, and it's
collecting.
like, oh my god.
Yeah.
I wish I could get it for $75. I paid more than $75, but I didn't pay no $350. I want to say I paid like around $150 for it.
That's a really good deal. I mean,
So,
I
yeah.
never saw
I mean,
it.
like I said, I
less
got it
than that.
years ago, so it was still, down there. But I mean, still $150 was a lot more than I spent on most games. But I looked at it and I was like, this thing's only going to go up. There's no way around it.
Well, and it's a Saturn game. Saturn games are rare, especially when you get them in a case that's still intact. Usually those cases break pretty easily. But I only have one RPG on the Saturn. It's Dragon Force.
Yeah.
I haven't played it
That's
yet.
not a cheap game either.
No, it's not. I got a good deal on it. I got it for like $75 a few years ago.
Wow.
That game is like $250 now.
That's one that I want. Yeah.
So I guess we kind of touched on it a little bit about what makes JRPGs polarizing, but is there anything you want to add to that? You mentioned that.
I think probably the biggest thing that turned people off is the length, quite frankly. They tend to be a lot longer than other games. Granted, you're seeing a lot of that in Western RPGs now too, because they're padding out everything with so much side stuff. And I'm not complaining about that. More game is always great, especially when you're paying $60 for a game, and then you look at that for how much time is put into some of these. You can take that as you will. I think the time sink is what turns a lot of people off, especially nowadays where people want to get in, like you said, get that quick fix. In JRPGs, typically don't have that. It's not a game that you turn on for 20 minutes, do something, and then you can just hop off and do whatever. Unless you're playing Persona, because those games you absolutely can hop in for 20 minutes, get a couple of things done, and then hop off again. The only problem is you play for 20 minutes, and you're like, I can do another day. And then you play another 20 minutes, and then I can do one more, and then another 4 hours has gone by.
Yeah.
So it's, but I think I would say the length is probably what turns most people off. A lot of people like realism, and they're not focused on realism typically either.
That's a good point. I mean, definitely length is an issue. Also, the realism. I know a lot of people. My brother is one. He doesn't like JRPGs just basically because he doesn't like anime. So it's too anime for him, and I can understand that.
Sure.
Another reason that people don't like it is because it's really passive. Or most RPGs are passive, or JRPGs, and you're just going around, reading dialogue, going to the next battle. Most battles just require a button push, and you're just pushing that battle to get through it. Some of the deeper ones go a little bit more in depth with that, but for the most part, most of them, especially the older ones, don't require you to do much except for push a button. So the passive gameplay is a turnoff. The cheesy characters, but I think that goes along with the anime aesthetic. But also the length. I think those are the main things there that polarize it. But the thing that's funny is I know people who absolutely can't stand them, and then I know people like me who just absolutely adore them. So it's really weird how there's no real middle ground. I don't know a lot of people that say, they're okay, So like, no, I don't like them.
My buddy Brian from TFN.
Yeah.
He's like that. He'll play a JRPG, absolutely, but he'll be the last person to say they're his favorite genre at all. Like I said, he looks at them as the highest highs and the lowest lows. So he'll experience the ones that he wants to experience, but he doesn't go out of his way to be like, I have to play the newest JRPG that came out. He's just like, if other people have told me this is good, I'll try it. He's kind of like he likes video games in general and will go after anything. So it's really if you asked him what his favorite genre was, I don't know that he could pinpoint something. I think it would change depending on how he was feeling at that moment.
Yeah.
Which, quite frankly, like I think that's perfectly fine. Like that just means he's happy to experience all that gaming has to offer. Quite frankly, I'm jealous of it in a lot of cases because he plays some games that I'm just like, oh God, why would I ever want to play that? And he just has fun with anything. You put a game in front of him and he's happy. So unless it's a racing game, he's not a fan of racing games.
Oh, I love racing games.
Yeah,
that seems like one that he would be into because that's
the
so simple
only
and fun.
genre that I know of that he does not like.
Huh, interesting. So I think we talked enough about what JRPGs are. I kind of wanted to get into the collecting aspect of it because both you and I are collectors, and it's something that we tend to focus on when collecting. So tell me, like, is that a focus of yours whenever you're out considering buying a game or game hunting or something like that?
It is. If you had asked me, like, I don't know, 5 years ago, I probably would have, well, not 5 years ago, maybe like 10 years ago, when I first started collecting, when I first started considering myself a collector, I probably would have told you that JRPGs were all I wanted and that I had no interest in getting other games and anything. But there comes a point where you branch out, which is what Mass Effect did for me, and maybe branch out into other genres and that kind of stuff. But they're so darn expensive. Like, they tend to be more expensive than anything else out there in my experience. Yeah. Because they're so rare, and especially over here in the States, Japanese copies are typically easier to find in a lot of cases, from what I've seen, just because they're all over there. But it's not an easy thing to collect for, simply because of the price tag on most of those. And again, if you're building up this huge library of games, if you're somebody like me who does it because you want to play them at some point, you're just going to end up having this massively long backlog, and that also is unattractive to a lot of people. So it's definitely not like, this is not going to be like a mainstream thing that millions of people are going to get into or anything like that. This is still going to be a niche thing, and I think it always will be. But it's, I love it personally. I love just knowing that there's a stack of unplayed JRPGs waiting for me to explore these worlds and get to know these characters.
Absolutely. I feel the same way. Like, when I first got into collecting, the main reason I got into collecting was because I wanted to go back and experience all those JRPGs that I missed growing up, from childhood, like all the way through college and my early years of, trying to start a career and things, when I didn't have money to be able to just, if I wanted, I'll go buy it, like,
sure,
that wasn't a thing I could do. So when I started being able to collect, I was like, well, maybe I can acquire a lot of these games for cheap and experience them now. And at that time, when I first got started, it was like right when prices started going up on games. I think I got in right before it got crazy. And so I was able to get a lot of really good deals on some JRPGs when I first got started. And so, yeah, I mean, I went in, that was my focus. And then I was like, you know what? Another genre that I really love that I want to focus on is horror games. But I also really like first-party Nintendo games. So I kind of veered off a little bit and started collecting all three of those. But I chose,
then you just started pulling whatever you could out of your honey hole.
That's right. Were you there?
Bring it back. Bring it. I was not in your honey hole. No.
So whenever I started getting into that, like, I realized I just picked the three most expensive things to collect for as far as video games go. So that put a little bit of a damper on things, but it's fine. I love it. The only thing that sucks about it, though, is whenever you go in game hunting, it's almost impossible to find a JRPG of any sort. So what I usually have to do is buy common games and sell off what I don't already have that I don't want, and use that money to pay full price for the JRPGs that I do want,
sure,
and the horror games that I want. So, excuse me. It was appealing to me to go back and experience those games. And a lot of times I'll go in and dabble with a few of them and put it back, and then try to decide when I want to actually tackle the whole game. So it's kind of, but it's hard to stay focused on that. And I actually like whenever we do a focused game review like we did with Earthbound, it forced me to, hey, I am now assigned to play this. I have to do it. So I kind of would like to do that again, with something else. We probably should pick something else soon and do something like that. But I love collecting for JRPGs. One of my most favorite things to do, honestly, is as nerdy as it sounds, is I'll get up and just go through and start looking through the artwork. I'll pull the manuals out and start flipping through and looking the artwork at that. And that gives me pleasure,
Yeah, for sure.
So it's, even though I'm not playing them, I still feel like I'm still getting something out of them.
Absolutely.
So another question for you. There are, and as you can see, I have all different kinds of consoles here and are games for all different consoles. Most of those are all JRPGs focused. And I was, sorry, losing my train of thought here, but all that to say, what system do you think was the best system for JRPGs?
Super Nintendo. The best, PlayStation 1. My favorite, Super Nintendo.
Okay. Nice clarification there.
Yeah.
I agree with you. The best is definitely the PS1. And I would also say that it's my favorite, the PS1, just because that's the one that introduced it to me. Same as probably the Super Nintendo for you. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, like, in generally speaking, for somebody who doesn't have nostalgia attached to it, I still think the PS1 is the best one.
The only problem, though, is it's going to be a lot tougher to go back to the PS1 graphics for somebody who's not into retro gaming at all. In my opinion, I think pixel art still holds up really well. And so the Super Nintendo, for me, gives it that edge a little bit as far as the artwork goes and easier on the eyes. Because there's some rough PS1 games to look at. And the ones that typically are easier to look at are sprite-based graphics that are just on the PS1.
Yeah, I mean, I can agree with that to an extent. There are some that are just really hard to go back to. One that comes to mind immediately for me is Beyond the Beyond, or not Beyond the Beyond. Yeah, Oof. Yeah, Beyond the Beyond. Oof. That game is really blocky, and it's a very early-looking PS1 3D game. So,
and it's rough.
Yeah, it is rough. But I mean, Final Fantasy VII even is rough. The characters are. But I don't think it is. I think it still holds up relatively well. Yeah, like the character sprites whenever you're in, or not sprites, the 3D models when you're in the battles look really good. It just makes me wish they could have used those same models in the actual game.
Right.
But also like the sprite-based games, Suikoden games, or sprite-based, those look good.
Breath of Fire.
Breath of Fire, absolutely, yes. There were still some really good ones, but I do agree. I think the Super Nintendo ones hold up a little bit better. But the Super Nintendo ones, in terms of gameplay, I don't think as a whole generally hold up as well, because a lot of them have multiple button presses to, like, say, examine something, versus they kind of simplified that later on in the PS1 days. But if I were to tell somebody who just got into JRPGs recently, I would say PS1 followed by the PS2, just because the visuals on the PS2 are pretty decent, and there's a lot of good PS2 JRPGs.
I have 2 games on my top 5 that are new, that I would recommend to people who are not into JRPGs looking to get into it.
Oh, perfect then. Well, Let's just go ahead and jump into that. Unless you, I think we've exhausted the system because. All right. Get us started.
I really quick, I just wanted to do 2 honorable mentions, and I'm not going to go into super detail on them, mainly because one of them, Secret of Mana, we should also clarify, these are top 5 JRPGs not named Final Fantasy. So these are non-Final Fantasy games.
Good point.
Otherwise, I mean, that would be my list pretty much. So I think total fanboy.
I think everybody knows how big Final Fantasy fans we are, so yeah. That's a good caveat to mention.
So we made sure not to include those because that would just be a given. Secret of Mana is also on my top 5 games of all time, but I did not include it in this. A, because there's Moogles in it, which is a Final Fantasy staple, but B, because it's mainly nostalgia that I love it. It's not all the games that are on my list are objectively better than Secret of Mana. So I left it off the list because of those reasons. But I do love that game. It is spectacular, and if you have a couple of friends to play with, I highly recommend it as well. Still to this day, the original, not the remake. The remake is good, but the original is still, I think, better. And also Pokemon Red and Blue. I love those games. Played Blue to death. First game that I ever spent 80 plus hours on. Just because I was so into it, and it was just an absolute blast. And I really, really enjoyed the simplified, just, being able to build my own party of monsters and go out, explore this world, try to collect everything, and just the freedom that I had with it. Really, really enjoyed that. So just some honorable mentions I had. Do you have any honorable mentions, or we want to just hop into it?
I do actually. So mine is the Xenoblade Chronicles and Xenosaga. I know they're not really in the same family, but they kind of are. They share a name, at least, in their same development studio.
Same developer, yeah.
But Xenoblade Chronicles 2, I think, is an amazing, more recent JRPG. And it's one that I had a ton of fun with. And I'm playing the first one now, the remaster, for the first time. And I'm enjoying it, I'd say, almost as much. Not as much as I did the second one. There are some things that I think were done better in the second one, but I'm still thoroughly enjoying the first one. Xenosaga, I loved. I didn't get through it. I think I got halfway through episode 2 before I stopped.
Oh, wow.
And I never bought the third one.
There's a lot of the third one is really, really cool. There's a lot of biblical references and like a lot of history pertaining to Earth. That's really, really neat in there.
I really want to go back and play those games. I would love for them to remaster the Xenosaga series.
Me too. They had plans
to
at least bring it. They just scrapped it.
Yeah, bring it to the Switch, and I'll get through all of them. Again, I'll play through the first one again. I thoroughly enjoyed the gameplay in that, but the storyline is what really grabbed me, and the atmosphere and all of that. Also, Parasite Eve. We have played that through for the first time, and for a video on your channel was it last year or 2 years ago? It's 2 years ago almost. And I really liked that game. I always kind of assumed that was a horror game. I would classify it as a JRPG more than a horror game.
Absolutely.
It's something that kind of straddles the line, I guess. And 2 more. Lunar, the Silver Star story on the PS1. I played that recently, a few years ago, I guess. And I love the music, the characters. Talk about character development. That game does an excellent job of making
it's so charming.
It is. It's got that happy feeling that Earthbound gives, I think.
It's a full, like, if you want adventure, if you want a story that's just adventure, that is Lunar right there.
Yeah, definitely. Even with the dated graphics and everything, I still think it played well.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a good time with it. But also the Pokemon series as a whole. I didn't pick any one specific game because they're all pretty much the same. But yeah, I love the Pokemon series.
Cool.
That's it.
You want to start off? You want me to start off?
I want you to go first.
Okay. First up, my number 5 is Persona 5. It is the entry that got me into the series. And I think it is a perfect example of what to show people when they say turn-based combat is outdated and doesn't work anymore. Play Persona 5. It's full of style. It's full of beautiful, wonderful artwork. It's got great characters. It has a really fun story. It's addicting as hell because you'll just want to keep playing day after day after day. Like I said, with what's happening with 4 and 3, it's just Persona in general. There's just so much personality in that game, and it is. I wish more people would have given it a shot because I think it's another one of those that could bring people into the genre if given the chance.
I agree completely. Yeah, that game is. I haven't gotten through it yet, and then honestly, I probably need to wait to pick up Royal and then play through again because I didn't get very far the first time.
On PS4.
But yeah, the style,
Royal's on PS4. Or are you waiting for it to be on the Switch?
No. I'm just waiting. If like when I'm ready to go back to it, I'm gonna
Oh, I
pick up
see.
Royal,
I gotcha.
play through Royal. But yeah, absolutely. The battle system is so like talk about art style that is really well represented and something that is 100% unique. Uh, the art in that game, and I'm not just talking about visually, but music wise, like everything syncs up so well in that
Yep.
game. Like the menus, like even just mundane tasks are made exciting. Every time you finish a battle, it's exciting, and I really appreciate that game for that. It took what
Yeah.
Persona 4 uh, did well and improved upon it. So, yeah, I agree
Definitely.
with your choice for sure.
Your turn.
All right. So my number 5 is a new addition for me, and that's Earthbound. I don't want
Oh.
to I don't want to get too much into it. We had a whole episode devoted to it,
Yeah.
but I absolutely adored that game too enough to put it on my list. So
Awesome.
there it is.
Very cool. If you want to hear us talk more about Earthbound, go check out our last episode. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. We had our friend Cameron in there, and yeah, we just went to town on that game.
Number 4.
Okay. Number 4. My number 4 is Suikoden 2. So Suikoden, in my eyes, is kind of like a Japanese take on a Western RPG. It's not going to be as like quirky and goofy and full of like just crazy out there personality as some other JRPGs that there are. There definitely are a few characters that are like that, but they're not going to be as front and center as some of these other games are. It's more if Japan were to make a Game of Thrones, that's what Suikoden is. It's very serious, very deals with some heavy themes like the tragedy of war, just conflict in general, aftermath, betrayal, friendship, love, like just human things. And it's just really, really great. You're not going to be fighting some giant monster that's threatening to blow up the universe. You're going to be, working to take down this evil empire from trying to use the power of these runes to, take over these countries and oppress these people who are committing war atrocities. And there's evil, like genuinely evil people who are just in it. Like Luca Blight is one of the best villains ever. And just because he's so horrible and he's so easy to hate, I recommend Suikoden 2 to anybody who is looking for a like Game of Thrones like Japanese role playing game. It's just so spectacular.
Absolutely. It also has a lightheartedness about it. It's not all kind of doom and gloom like you might think.
It's got a little bit of
there's-
everything, but it's definitely like more serious than typical JRPGs, I think.
Right. That's something I really appreciate about the Suikoden series in general. My first introduction to the series was with 3, and I remember thinking like there is weird characters and everything, and it feels a little bit anime-ish, but at the same time it doesn't. Like it has a seriousness about it that most anime or JRPGs in general don't have, and I appreciate that.
You've got, you're recruiting 108 stars of destiny, 108 characters to join your army. So there's going to be some goofy personalities in there, but none of them are like front and center where you're like, oh, dude, this guy again. And then it like ruins the experience because it takes you out of what else is going on. Everything just fits so well. They give you just the right amount of that goofiness to where it's not overpowering and you can't take the game seriously anymore. It's just, I don't know, it's a really well balanced series in general, quite frankly.
Yeah. Definitely. It's one I need to get back to and play for sure. I got a good ways through too. And
it's really good.
Yeah, I stopped playing. So
it's another one that's insanely expensive.
Yeah. Especially in recent years. That's another one that's like tripled in value. It's crazy. Okay, so my number 4 is Chrono Cross. And Chrono Cross is, it's in that golden era of JRPGs on the PlayStation 1, and I remember specifically being like in love with JRPGs because by that time I'd already finished Wild Arms and Final Fantasy VII and a handful of other ones that I rented, like maybe Legend of Legaia I think was one, and Legend of Dragoon. I can't remember if that came before or after Chrono Cross, but yeah, I was all about the genre at the time. And so I remember going to the store, going to the like Babbage's, and they had a poster up on the wall showcasing are wanting you to reserve Chrono Cross, Legend of Mana, and the third one was Trails of Fate. Does that sound
Threads
right?
of Fate.
Threads of Fate. Thank you. And these were the next like SquareSoft big games to come out, you know, because it was right after Final Fantasy VIII, and so they needed to push these games out. And I remember the sales clerk there was pushing me on it, like saying, "Oh man, did you play Chrono Trigger? Oh, that's such a great game. Did you play Secret of Mana? That was such a great game. You know, these are the sequels to that. You got to get these." He was hyping it up like big time for me. And I remember thinking at the time, is like, I've heard of both of these series or both of these games, and I knew that they were special, but I'd never experienced them. I'd never played them before. So I was drawn in by the Chrono Cross artwork specifically, like that that bright, colorful sea water colors, you know, the blues and the greens and everything really, really enticed me. So I ended up pre-ordering all 3 games that day. And I think Legend of Mana was the first one that came out, and I played through it and loved it. Absolutely adored it, especially for the artwork. That game is one of the more unique looking.
Beautiful. I still haven't finished it.
Games.
I need to.
Oh man, I loved it, and the world building about it. But anyway, Chrono Cross was the second one to come out, and I think I canceled my Threads of Fate pre-order. I didn't end up picking that one up. I didn't have money at the time or whatever. I was only in high school, so I picked up Chrono Cross and fell in love with it just immediately, man. It was one of those, I put it in, and the opening title screen is like this blue exotic like lagoon or something, and the camera is underwater and you're seeing these fish swimming around, and it's got this beautiful music, and it drew me in instantly. This was right after the cutscene. The cutscene was really good too, but it was the opening title screen that really stuck with me. And then you go into the game, and the music is amazing. Like the first thing you notice is the music, besides the artwork. Like everything comes together so
Yasunori Mitsuda,
artistically.
Man. He nailed it in that one. Yasunori Mitsuda.
Oh yeah, definitely, absolutely. It's just incredible music. Still to this day, I think I mentioned before, it's probably my favorite video game soundtrack of all time.
Wow.
And so like at that time, like I've always been fascinated by water and by the ocean, and like, you know, you've got people who are interested in space and the unknown of space, and people who are interested in the sea and the unknown of the sea. I definitely I'm on the side of the sea. It's beautiful, you know, like the vast unknown of the sea just really intrigues me. And so, in fact, my senior year, I got scuba diving certified so I could go scuba diving and really experience it. But I was so into it then, even more so than I am now. And that game just it appealed to me immediately because of those aspects. And then as I start playing, the battle system was so unique in that game. Like it was unlike anything I'd played before up to that point. And I don't remember exactly loving it, but I did appreciate it.
This is bullcrap. Tells you like, oh, you got a 48% chance to hit, and you'll just nail them, and then it'll say you got a 96% chance to hit and you miss. Like what? How? What?
Yes, you're so right, man. It's inconsistent, but I enjoyed the variety of different moves and things that you could do, and the moves that you take in one turn. It was something about it that I liked. Also, the number of characters was both a good thing and a bad thing for me. Like I really enjoyed collecting characters because there's a lot. There's like, I don't know, like 50
something
characters
like that,
or so. And you can't recruit them all in one playthrough. You have to play through multiple times to get them. Right. But with those characters came unique abilities and battle assets when you use them. Like no two characters were alike. Well, maybe there were a few, one or two that were similar, but for the most part, everybody had unique characteristics. You know, you had like a scarecrow. You had, I can't remember. You had like a little fairy girl. Can't remember her name, but yeah, you just had like a good variety of characters that you could use, all with their own personalities. Yeah, and their own accents, and it was just so cool. But the downside to doing it that way is that there wasn't really a lot of attention placed on character development. So
not only that, but you end up not even really having the opportunity to use most of them, unless you really just like go out of your way to switch out people constantly. It was a little frustrating in that regard.
Well, you would tend to play. I would sample all of them, and then just whatever ones I thought had the coolest move sets or something like that, I would use those. I don't remember the strategy that I would use to pick my characters. It's been so long, but I do know that I did have a handful of characters that I just stuck with throughout the remainder of the game.
Yeah.
But the main characters, Kid and Surge, they focus a lot on those. Oh, in the Links. They focus a lot on those characters, and so you do get some decent character development with them. But I wish the same kind of attention could have been paid to some of the side characters. But
yeah, regardless,
I had an amazing time with it, and it stuck with me even till now. Like of all the RPGs that I played, it's one that still sticks with me. So it definitely deserves a spot on my list.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really have anything to add. You said it all. It's a great game. Definitely worth checking out. Which that's your number 4. My number 3 is its predecessor, Chrono Trigger. Quite frankly, Chrono Trigger, in my opinion, is one of the greatest games ever made, period. The cast is insanely diverse, each one of them having their own unique personality, and it is just an absolute pleasure to get to know each and every one of them. They're all so different. They all come from different time periods throughout history, and the cast is honestly the biggest reason I love that game so much, but also because you get to explore these different aspects of history, and it's done so well to where when you do one thing in the past, it's going to affect something in the future, and you get to kind of play with that and go back and forth and meet different people and see these civilizations and how they've evolved over time. And it's just time travel done so well, not to mention the insane amount of endings that the game has. It's something that I have gone back and played several times over, because I have never gotten tired of it. Like I said, Chrono Trigger, easily one of the best games ever made, not even just JRPG. I think it is legitimately just that good. And another one of those, if given the chance, I think a lot more people would really, really like it, and it would bring them into the genre.
Yeah, that's honestly, I don't have a lot of experience with the game, but everything you described is my feelings exactly, even though I've never finished it. But one of the things that drew me to Chrono Trigger, honestly, was Akira Toriyama. I love his art style. He's one of my favorite artists of all time. And even though a lot of his characters retain the same kind of look and feel, it's a style that I really like and I appreciate. Yeah. So that was one that I wish Chrono Cross would have had as well. As I wonder how different Chrono Cross would have been with Akira Toriyama art.
Not that the art in Chrono Cross was bad. I mean, it's still good.
It's really good, but but it's
not Akira Toriyama.
Yeah, wants to see that.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But yeah, you're right, and it's bright and colorful, really well done character development, but also like one of those box art games that translates very well to the actual game.
Absolutely,
the box is bright and colorful. Got those Akira Toriyama's characters. They even are able to represent that in sprite-based work too. So I thought that was really cool. Sure. That's another one actually that I just picked up at my honey hole.
Oh no!
I had to do that to you. I had to do that to you.
No, you didn't. You didn't at all. No.
So I found the DS version of Chrono Trigger at
best version
my store, and yeah, that's what I've been hearing, and I wanted to add it to my collection. But the biggest reason I picked it up is because he had a strategy guide with it, but it was the strategy guide for the Super Nintendo version. So I have the Super Nintendo
for free
version. Oh, nice. I mean, I kind of got mine for free.
That was back when they basically had it. I've got actually a handful of Super Nintendo RPG strategy guides that I got for free. When I would renew, they had like promotion for a long time with Nintendo Power, where when you would renew your subscription, you could choose a strategy guide that they would send you. And so I got like
Oh, I remember
Chrono
that.
Trigger, I got Super Mario RPG. I think Donkey Kong Country was in there as well, and like one or two other ones as well. Yeah,
Very cool. Yeah. Yeah, I've been getting into the strategy guides lately. I mean, that's one of the biggest reasons why I was picking up those games there is he put those strategy guides with them. But I essentially got the strategy guide for $10 because I think I paid $10
nice.
more than the going rate of Chrono Trigger right now on DS.
There you
So
go.
that was awesome. I was super happy about that.
Number
So that was 3 for you. Okay, my 3 is Breath of Fire 4. So
Okay.
Breath of Fire 4, like you mentioned earlier, the art style in that game is so well done. Like, I don't know who the artist is, to be honest with you, but
I don't either.
I would like to know. But it's one of those. I've always been attracted to the Breath of Fire series because of the artwork, but 4 specifically really drew me in. And when it was actually the box art. The only reason I never played Breath of Fire 3 when it came out is because the box art was so bad, like so bad. I don't know what the heck they were thinking with that game. I didn't realize that there was such an amazingly
Isn't it just like fire?
Yeah, that's it. It's a black background with fire, and had I known, because I'm at that time I only rented or bought games based upon the cover. I never even looking at that box art, I never would have flipped it around to see what I was missing. So I missed out on that game completely. But later on, Breath of Fire 4 was advertised pretty heavily in the magazines I was reading and things, and I just instantly said I have to get that game. Well, when it finally came out, I rented it. I didn't have the money to buy it, so I rented it and kept it for a couple weeks. And I don't think I ended up finishing the game, but I got pretty close. I needed to return it. So, but it always stuck with me since then, and I always wanted to buy the game. The game never really got cheap. I remember it stayed kind of at retail value for a while. I have it now, but it's one of those rentals that really, really stuck with me all this time. And some of the biggest reasons why was that opening movie. I love the opening movie in that game and the song that goes with it. The idea of having this guy who turns into a dragon, and you acquire some characters along the way on your journey to, I don't know what. He has a stereotypical amnesia thing, and you're trying to figure out who he is and where he comes from.
Every Breath of Fire game.
Yeah. And it's the storyline it sucks, quite frankly. It's not a great storyline, but that's not what drew me in. It was the art and the animations. Like when you go into battles, it's like Persona is now. That's how I think Breath of Fire was then. It was the animation and the character actions when they swung their swords or changed into a dragon or whatever it is that they were doing was so well done that it stuck out to me really, really well. So
I got a funny story about Breath of Fire 4. I have not finished it, but I have played a good chunk of it. When I was playing it, it was right around the time it first came out. We took a family trip to Florida, and we did all the Disney parks and everything. And so we went to Disney World one day, Universal another day, and then I think they were going to, it was Epcot Center. And I had brought my PlayStation with me. And I turned into just super brat and was like, I don't want to go to Epcot Center. I want to stay here and play PlayStation. And my dad was pissed. Like he was mad. Man. Like basically the only reason I got to stay was because he got so angry and fed up that I was whining so much that I wanted to play this stupid game that he stormed out of the room, and my mom and we had an exchange student staying with us at the time. They all left, and I stayed at the hotel all day while they all went to Epcot Center, and I played Breath of Fire 4. And I still never finished it. So, but I did recently finish Breath of Fire 3 and loved the beginning, hated the second half with a passion. So.
Oh, really? Yeah, it slows way down.
Stupid mini games, and they're all insanely annoying. I hated them. If it wasn't for those mini games, I would have had a blast with it. Those mini games really ruined it for me. It made me so angry.
Well, I think it's the same with Breath of Fire 4. I mean, it doesn't have the mini game problem, but it starts off real strong and then just kind of peters off, and I got to a point where I didn't really care anymore. But I kept going because I enjoyed the characters and I enjoyed the art. So, and I enjoyed seeing what new enemies would pop up next. But yeah,
all
number
right.
two.
Number two, my number two is another semi-recent game, Octopath Traveler.
Ooh,
I freaking love this game so much, and a lot of it has to do with the soundtrack. The soundtrack is so spectacular. I have it in my car right now, and I've been listening to it nonstop for honestly probably about a year. It's what I've had just on repeat in my car.
Wow.
There's like 85 tracks or something, so it I just let it play and it goes through it all. But man, I love the music in that game. I love the characters and I love the individual stories for each one. The only thing I'm not crazy about is how they don't exactly intertwine very well. They're very much individual stories where you're just everybody else is along for the ride on those individual stories. But those individual stories, in my opinion, are really, really good. The artwork, because I'm such a fan of the Super Nintendo, they took that Super Nintendo look and style and just modernized it and really, really just made it absolutely breathtaking to look at.
Yeah.
Those environments, the cell shading, it's just so gorgeous. And I think I would love to see like a Final Fantasy VI remake with that style. I think that would be so awesome. That would be so cool. So yeah, it's got the job system and I love the battle system and it's just everything about it is just so much fun. And I really, it's one that if it wasn't as long as it is, I would have already gone back and played it again, but I definitely do want to go back and play it again at some point when I have the time. It's just backlog at this point, but I loved it. I loved every minute of it.
I wonder why that hasn't been attempted again since, that art style and that way that it's done. Like I haven't seen anything.
It's still super recent. Well, not super recent, but it's relatively recent.
Well, I mean, like even like copycats, like people who want to capture that style. I think it's a unique selling point to that game. It was for me anyway. It's weird. I mean, it's not weird. It's really cool how they take 2D pixel art and turn it into 3D, but not in a way that you think. Kind of like in a Paper Mario-ish way, sort of. But it works so well, and it looks. That game is truly, really unique. The music is really good too.
For sure.
Persona 4 would be my number two.
Okay.
I don't have a lot more to add than what you said about Persona 5, but Persona 4 is my favorite because it wasn't my first one. Persona 3 was actually my first one. But I enjoyed Persona 3 so much that I had to play Persona 4, and I had a Vita, so I picked up Persona 4 Golden, and just fell in love with that game 100%, hook, line, and sinker, from the beginning. And what it does differently than Persona 3 that really works for me is the character development. Persona 3 has really good character development, but I didn't grow quite the attachment to the characters that I did in Persona 4. It's like so character focused, and I think that's what the biggest selling point to me on Persona 4 in general was just it's very anime looking. So I mean, if you can't get past that, sorry, that's how it is. But if you can overlook that and overlook some of the corniness that the game has, man, like those characters are some of my favorite characters in any game. Period. I love every one of them. I felt like that was one of those immersed moments where I almost felt like I was part of the group. I had gotten to know each one of these characters to such a degree that I felt like they're friends of mine. As stupid as that sounds, that's why
I love JRPGs is because I get that feeling a lot with those kind of games.
Yeah. I don't. And it's not very often. I haven't been able to get that feeling since I was a kid. And so that's why a lot of these are games from my childhood. But Persona 4 was relatively recent, and that still was able to do that for me. So, yeah, I absolutely love Persona 4. And I honestly, I think that's part of the reason why I haven't gone back to play 5. 5 wasn't doing that to me the same way that Persona 4 did. I wasn't connecting with the characters on that level. Yeah. So I still think that Persona 4 does a better job of that.
You're not alone. I see a lot of people saying 4 is the best in the series, hands down. So I'm looking forward to getting further in it. I'm so close to the beginning at this point. I have not even I haven't even done a battle yet. It's literally just been the first couple of days of school, so I'm bare
Oh
bones
man,
just starting out. So, but I'm definitely
I
excited to get into it. This is the
I can't
longest
wait
game
to
that I've
hear your
left on my
opinion.
list. So once this is done, it's pretty much smooth sailing throughout the rest. The rest are relatively short. So
Yeah. So the only character then that you really kind of know then is the uh, the uncle. I forget his name, and his daughter.
yeah, and I've met the first three classmates. I've met them,
Okay.
but I
Yeah.
haven't done much with them. So
Yeah. The little girl, man, she's awesome. You grow to really love her, especially when she's sitting in front of the TV singing the Nunez song.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I love that game.
All right. Can I just before I give you mine? Can I take a guess? I'm not going to say what I think your number one is, but does it start with a W?
Yeah, you know what it is. Yeah, you know what it is.
I was like, it's going to be on this list. I know it is, and so you haven't said it yet, so I figured that's probably it. All right.
Yeah.
So, my number one is my second favorite game of all time, hands down, and that is Xenogears. What
Yeah.
to say about Xenogears? If you like complex story, it doesn't get much more complex than that. There is so much to that game. Mechs, war, rich versus poor, freaking religion, murder, uh, like judge and jury, freaking like poverty. It's so all encompassing in everything, and it's so philosophical in every aspect. Uh, it's just so freaking spectacular. Unfortunately, the second disc was rushed, and you can absolutely tell that while you're playing. But if you just take the story for what it is, it's so damn good. I've said this a couple of times on my channel, but there is another YouTube channel that used to go by Dark Pixel. They now go by Resonant Arc. Um, Mike, the guy that runs it, he did a really good video on the Xenogears Perfect Works, which is Xenogears was supposed to be episode 5 in a like 6 or 7 part game series, but the project was just way too big, so they kind of had to just back off. But Perfect Works basically describes what the rest of the project, what the rest of the games were going to encompass. And just go look up Resonant Arc Xenogears, and you will see he goes into the best explanation. Like, he really dumbs it down and presents it in a way that is easily understandable by everybody. And it's so interesting and so intriguing, and you'll really get a feel for what this game has to offer. It's not for the faint of heart. It's long. It is complex. It'll make your head spin, and quite frankly, you might even have to play it like twice to fully understand it. But if you're into like philosophy and just deep thought in general, where you're like, you've got these crazy parallels to the real world, and like what is good and what is evil, and what's right and what's wrong. God, it's just so incredible. And I remember getting that game when I was 15 or 16 when it came out, and just being absolutely blown away. I bought it on a whim. I just looked at it and I was like, oh, cool, another RPG with Squaresoft. Yeah, I'll pick it up. And when I first played it, I had no idea what I was getting into. I was just like, this is so out there and so weird. I don't understand half of what's going on, but these giant robots beating the crap out of each other are kind of cool. And I like the characters and the cast, and the artwork is really neat. But man, you look deeper into that game, it just has so much to offer. I cannot recommend it enough to anybody who likes to think of video games as like something to analyze and something to reflect on. It is definitely amazing for that. And the music again, Yasunori Mitsuda. This is one of the best soundtracks I have ever heard. Just so much emotion. He said after he got done finishing the soundtrack that it almost killed him, because he put so much into it and like did not take breaks, like just went all out. But man, is it spectacular. So it just has the whole package. I can't say enough good things about that game, even though, like I said, the second half is definitely rushed. If you get the chance and you have the time and the patience, it really is something to behold.
Wow, that's really really high praise for that game. I played it when it came out. I've been when I was younger. I rented it, and you know, I guess I wasn't in the right mindset or something, because it just absolutely did
It's
not
not for everybody.
strike a chord with me. It's
Yeah.
one I definitely want to go back, maybe with a different way of thinking. See if
Honestly, well, I mean, now that you're older too, you'll understand a lot more. And
yeah.
I think it's definitely worth a shot going back to, for sure. If you do, let me know. You want to do like a retrospect or something, do a review on that game. I'd love to go back and play it again. It's been so long since I finished it.
Well, there we go. That's the game. I mentioned earlier I wanted to do one. Let's do that one. I'm perfectly cool with that. It's definitely one I want to go back to, especially considering, man, that my honorable mentions was Xenoblade Chronicles and Xenosaga. Those games are every bit as epic in their storyline, I think, as well. I'm going to assume Xenogears, but I mean, it's just what that director, art studio, or studio in general is known for, is creating just huge epic storylines that get pretty deep.
Yep.
So, especially with Xenosaga, I think Xenosaga had some pretty deep concepts in there. Xenoblade, definitely not as much, but they're still exciting stories. Those games are known for having good stories. So, cool.
For sure. That's my list.
Yeah, it's a good list. I think, well, JJ already knows what my number one is, and I'm sure everybody else does too, but it's Wild Arms. And there's really no big reason to say why, other than it was my introduction to the genre. And it was something that I just fell in love with all the characters, and I love the idea of starting off at an intimate level, almost like you start off as each character. So you don't just start off as one character and acquire party members. You play as each individual character. There's only 3 main characters in the game. Or 3 main party members. There's other main characters, but you start off with Rudy or Jack or Cecilia.
Mm-hmm.
And well, before that, the opening sequence is probably my favorite opening sequence of any video.
Spectacular. I still go back and listen to it. I'd say at least once a month.
Oh, really? Wow. Mm-hmm. Man, that's pretty incredible. I just remember I would put it on the disc and just run it on repeat.
That and the Suikoden 3 intro as well. And Chrono Cross, actually.
Yeah, there's so many good ones back then. Mm-hmm. But Wild Arms stuck with me for that instance right there. But you start off as each character and you play through their kind of mini little storyline that leads up to all 3 of them meeting. And I remember playing up to that point, and they all met, and then you fight one of the main bosses, and it was a tough boss battle, and he destroys the village or the town that you were in, and then the credits start rolling. I was like, what? No, did I beat this game already? I was freaked out. Like, I couldn't believe that the game was already over. But that, oh man, little did I know. That was just the opening credits, like 5 hours in.
Yep.
Yeah, that was the opening credits, and then you got a huge adventure ahead of you after that. But it was fun because this world, it's a Western style cowboys and things like that. So that was appealing to me. Then having to build these characters up and watch them get stronger and watch their stories unfold, because they all have a pretty kind of tragic, well, not tragic. One of them has a pretty tragic story opening, and the other 2 have interesting stories as well. So you just want to see it through to the end and see how their story plays out. And it was unlike anything I'd played up until that point. I was used to the side scrollers and racing games and things like that, but I'd never played something that deep in storytelling and character development and things like that. So it was my primer for Final Fantasy VII, and it became more than that. It instantly became like, at the time I remember thinking, I don't think Final Fantasy VII can top Wild Arms. I loved it that much when I played it. So yeah, that's my number one.
Did you ever end up playing the remake?
No, I never did.
No,
I have
I haven't
it. I
either.
just have never gotten to it.
Yeah, I haven't either. I'd like to at some point for sure. I almost put it on this list for this year, for my list of 20, but I ended up just having to take it off of there because I had a couple of PS2 games already picked out. And I really want to get to it though, because you get 3 more party members. So
Yeah, I remember seeing that. And
yeah,
honestly, yeah, if you want to put it on your next year's list, then I'll put it on my list as well. We can talk about that one as well. I'm
it's
curious
a
how it
Wild Arms
differs.
in general is Wild Arms in general is just such a spectacular game. It really is just like it was a wonderful transition game from the Super Nintendo to the PlayStation. It still had those sprite graphics that, when you're walking around the world map and in towns and everything like that, but then you get into battle, and while yes, they're rough to look at now, some of those animations still are pretty dang cool and a really cool step up from what the Super Nintendo had to offer.
Yeah.
And then obviously some of the cutscenes and stuff too. It was just so massive for its time. It's still a pretty long game. And just the amount of vehicles that you get and the places that you go and, quite frankly, the story. And I loved, like you mentioned, the dynamic of starting with the 3 characters and each individually having their own lead up to the beginning. I can't tell you how many times I've played that section alone where you just play as the 3 characters individually up until that, where you hit the credits. Because I love that part so much. Same with Suikoden 3. That is the reason I love that game so much too, is the Trinity Sight system where you're switching between viewpoints of different characters watching the same events unfold. It's not like that where you're watching the same events unfold, but you do get to at least, play as these individual characters who eventually come together. And I love that. I think that's just such a cool dynamic. So yeah, Wild Arms is a great choice. I thought about putting it on my list, but then I had just all these others, and I left it off as an honorable mention because I figured you were probably going to put it on yours somewhere.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, it's funny because I loved Wild Arms so much. I remember renting Wild Arms 2 when it came out, but it didn't have the same appeal to me as the first one did.
Felt that way.
I couldn't even tell you why, to be honest. I just didn't have a connection to the characters like I did with the first game.
But at that point, you played Final Fantasy VII.
That's true too. That probably had a big influence on my decision.
Yeah.
But I also played. I didn't play very far into that one, but I picked up Wild Arms 3 when it came out, and I played a good chunk of that game and really enjoyed what I played of it. And I think I was torn on the art style. It had that cel shaded graphics, but I didn't think they were really well done in Wild Arms 3.
My least favorite ending in any game ever.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh man, I
awful.
need to go back to it. But I'd never played Alter Code F. I never played 4, and I never played 5.
You know what?
So,
I don't even care. I'm going to spoil it for everybody. So it literally ends. I'm not going to story spoilers, but it literally ends with they're surrounded by bad guys, and they're hiding behind boxes. And then they're like, what are we going to do? I guess we have no choice but to just do what we always do and jump in head first. And they turn and they jump over the boxes, and it freezes, and then it goes to the credits. And that's it. I'm like, what? That's the end of the... Oh, dude, I could seriously go off on that. Oh, my God. It made me so mad. So mad.
I could probably get with that. I mean, they're just saying
oh my God,
their adventures aren't done. They're going to keep on doing what they do.
I know, but I wanted some closure to the story. I wanted to see where they went afterwards and that kind of there's I think one additional scene after the credits or something like that, but still it's not. I was so mad.
It seems fitting for those characters though too, because all of them met at the beginning of the game, trying to steal something, from what I remember.
Yeah.
Now I have to finish it and see. That's funny. But that's our list.
Our top 5 JRPGs that does not include Final Fantasy. So,
and this went a little longer than I expected, but honestly, no, not really. It's a genre that you and I just have a passion for. Glad we were finally able to talk about it. Yeah, for sure. We've done enough of it on our own time. I mean, that probably bore Amy when we go to Retropalooza and start talking JRPGs.
Right. Yeah, man.
Glad we can finally do that.
Absolutely. So next episode we are going to be talking next gen. I think we're just going to kind of just go into our thoughts, our feelings, what we know so far, what we think we might see, and just how we feel about PS5, Xbox Series X, and whatnot. I'll save thoughts that I have, but hopefully we'll have a little more info by then too. I'm excited to talk about that stuff and kind of hear what you have to say as well. Because it's right around the corner. We're getting close to PS5 and Xbox Series X, so it'll be interesting.
Still no price announced, man. That's crazy.
Nope, not officially. Although by the time this comes out, maybe. Who knows? But when we are recording this, no, there is no price announcement yet. So, you got anything you want to plug?
I do not. Nothing new to report from me. It's been slow with doing recreational things because I'm busy doing housework and stuff.
Fair enough. Well, you can follow us both on Twitter. Descriptions in the link on the video on the channel. Game Room Revival. That is where you can see a video of us. And if you're listening to the audio podcast, you can find that on all audio platforms as well. Adrian's got those set up. Also, big kudos to you, sir, for what you did with the Earthbound one, because you went to town on that episode, adding music and all that stuff, and it just sounded great. You. So if you have only watched the video portion of the Earthbound podcast, I would say definitely go give a listen to the audio version as well, just because Adrian put a lot of work into it, and I was just like, we record this, here you go, guys. And that was it.
No.
So
honestly, dude, when we were talking about it, we were describing so many tracks that I felt the need to have to give a sample of those so you could see what we're talking about. And it's going to be done on this episode too, because we do talk a lot about music. So
we got to put some of those tracks in there. It's fine. It's fine. Okay, it's fine.
It's fun. I discovered something new that I can do, so I'm going to do it.
Well, if you need any recommendations for any of the games that I have on my list, I can give you song recommendations on all these.
Why don't you go ahead and do that? Yeah, just send it over to me. I'll put those in.
Fair enough. All right. That's all I got. Anything else?
Nope, that's it, man. It was a fun discussion.
Yeah, agreed. Well, and with that, this is the Pixel Perspective signing off. Thank you so much for watching and or listening. My name is JJ.
And I'm Adrian.
And as always, keep on gaming.
On gaming.